Yang ji jimbur zirdan nimi zhang zone munum jimbur nga gyata bakar targan zanto shirmar to. Tumba tikje jan la ki sham tsar mechan rawar seringi zhang kamsa jawar tikji shan la yi larma. Jime panzo jala sara de gongje topan pawar shinji lo, gongje topan pawar shinji lo, gongje topan pawar shinji lo.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate sentient beings, please generate bodhicitta before today's teaching. Today, we continue teaching the Sutra of Great Liberation. We haven't taught much of the Sutra of Great Liberation. It should be divided into 3 volumes in total: upper volume, middle volume, and lower volume. For the upper volume, we will finish it today. I think there have been 15 classes. During the teachings, there haven't been any obstacles. It has also gone very smoothly. At the beginning of this year, because of the pandemic and various circumstances, we wondered whether we would have such opportunities in the future to keep learning new sutras. It was very hard to say. But this year, we have had several scriptures, including the Parent Sutra, and several small scriptures, the Sutra on the merits of the Sangha, and some others. Most importantly, the Ksitigarbha Sutra has been completed. This Sutra of Great Liberation was also something we arranged temporarily. Today, the upper volume will be finished. So it's very complete. I myself also very happy about this situation. I also especially want to thank all our volunteers throughout this process, whether it's the text, audio, video, or management in various aspects. All kinds of things also require the dedication of our Dharma friends. Everyone has been working quietly behind the scenes to provide conveniences in various ways for everyone present. This is truly a rare opportunity that doesn't come easily. Without everyone's efforts and cooperation in various aspects in this degenerate age, to hear Mahayana Dharma is truly not so easy, not so simple. These few classes, though not particularly many as before, in the past, basically throughout 1 year for 360 days, perhaps except for 2 or 3 days in a month, I would teach the sutras for you. But now it may not be that simple. One reason is about the body health, and second are various trivial matters and so on. But overall, it should be considered quite good for someone of my age, among Khenpos and Dharma teachers, who is still make efforts in management and teaching is not particularly common. So I myself also making efforts, and I also have this sense of satisfaction. Our Dharma friends are all especially obedient. Everyone has been working very hard in all aspects. Everyone's aspiration to study Dharma should be said to be quite good. Various conditions have come together like this, and all these previous classes have been completed. As for the future, we can't determine the specific time right now. Probably in about a month, at that time we'll continue again. But we can't determine it specifically right now. When the time comes, we'll see how things are. I think everyone should pay attention and take it seriously. That's roughly it. Next, we'll continue teaching the names of the Bodhisattvas, the names of the Bodhisattvas. In the future, it's best to recite them if we can. If we can't recite them today, just hearing them right here now, whether in Tibetan or Chinese of the names of the Bodhisattvas, is also very fortunate in such degenerate age. Indeed, to hear so many Bodhisattvas, and moreover in different scriptures, all these great Bodhisattvas who are recorded. So I think in a certain sense for us, obtaining a human body is very meaningful. So today we continue teaching Namo Bodhisattva of assorted adornments. Among the names of the Bodhisattvas here, I mainly cross-reference with the Sutra of Buddha names. This is the most important. At the same time, I look at the Danhuang versions and the Taisho canon, as well as different Tibetan versions. For some Bodhisattva names, there's no way to explain them. I'm just checking whether they appear in other scriptures and giving you a relatively rough introduction. After this, we ourselves should preferably come to know these Bodhisattvas. Next, Bodhisattva of assorted adornments. It is in the Sutra of Buddha names. But there are, for example, Prince of various adornments Dharma Bodhisattva. Several Bodhisattvas also have names like this. Next, we teach Namo Shakya Dvaja Bodhisattva. It is in the Bodhisattva Shala Sutra. all the suffering that sentient beings experience must be removed, because this bodhisattva especially causes the suffering of sentient beings to be removed one by one. This kind of bodhisattva which cares about all the sentient beings very much. Then Namo Murdaja Bodhisattva, this is also in the Sutra of Buddha names. For example, Prince Murdaja Dharma Bodhisattva. Actually, this Murdaja, in the past, some wheel-turning kings were also born from their Ushnisha. This bodhisattva is probably related to his place of birth. Then Namo Vidyaraja Bodhisattva. It's not in the Sutra of Buddha names, but it has been mentioned in other scriptures. Namo Mahaprabha Bodhisattva. According to other scriptures, he is a chief bodhisattva of the northern direction. Namo Shanti Bodhisattva. It is in the Tibetan. It's also in the Sutra of Buddha names. Shanti actually means fearless. It should mean without fear, without anguish. Then Namo Abhaya Bodhisattva, this was added later. We don't need it here. Namo Guhya Samkhaya Bodhisattva. In the Sutra of Buddha names, it's Guhya Vyuha. The Vyuha meaning sparse, also meaning commentary, the meaning of explanation. There are also different names. There's Guhya Vyuha Bodhisattva and Guhya Samkhaya Bodhisattva. Namo Puspanetra Bodhisattva. It's in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Uttama Bodhisattva is also there. Namo Sarvarupa Samdarshana Bodhisattva. Everyone probably remembers Sarvarupa Samdarshana Bodhisattva. In the Vimalakirti Sutra, there is a Bodhisattva who asks Vimalakirti, the householder, who are your parents? Who is your wife? Who are your children? At that time, Vimalakirti replied with a verse, wisdom is my mother, skillful means is my father, dharma, joy is my wife, compassion is my children, and so forth. He answered like this. At that time, it was like this. This is Sarva Rupa Samdarshana Bodhisattva. Namo Riddhi Bodhisattva is also there. Namo Sagaraguna Bodhisattva. It's in the Nirvana Sutra. This Bodhisattva attained the 10th ground. It's also in the Sutra of Buddha names, a Bodhisattva who attained the 10th ground. Namo Anantakaya Bodhisattva. Anantakaya Bodhisattva is also there. It's also in the Nirvana Sutra. It seems that in the Ksitigarbha Sutra, there's also a manifestation as Anantakaya. So for Anantakaya Bodhisattva, actually his bodily form emits boundless light. At this time, worldly beings, including some heavenly kings, all become eclipsed. Their light no longer appears. At that time, Manjushra Bodhisattva said, you don't need to be afraid. The light of humans and gods is actually ordinary light. The light of Anantakaya Bodhisattva is very special. He comforted those human and heavenly beings. This is also in the Sutra of Buddha names. Then Namo Bhaisajaraja Shvara Bodhisattva. This one is there. It seems I haven't seen it in the Nirvana Sutra. In this section, individual bodhisattvas are all in the Nirvana Sutra. Namo Kashyapa Bodhisattva. Kashyapa Bodhisattva, everyone probably remembers. In the Uttara Tantra, we also often use this in the commentary on the Uttara Tantra. This is Kashyapa. In the Nirvana Sutra, there is specifically a chapter on Kashyapa Bodhisattva. In the chapter on Kashyapa Bodhisattva, it teaches the principle that Buddha nature is permanent. There's specifically a chapter in the Nirvana Sutra. Then Namo Vimalagarbharaja Bodhisattva. This is also in the Nirvana Sutra and also in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Sarvadharmadarin Bodhisattva. This is also in the Nirvana Sutra. Sarvadharmadarin Bodhisattva, and next one is Sarvatrana Bodhisattva. Actually, Sarvatrana Bodhisattva was added by them later because uphold also has the meaning of rescue, but perhaps they didn't understand the Tibetan meaning at that time. They didn't realize the Tibetan also doesn't have it. On the surface, the Tibetan appears to say Sarvatrana Bodhisattva, but rescue and uphold sometimes have the same meaning. In Chinese, uphold actually also means rescue, because uphold means to uphold, to accept, to receive, this meaning. So it has the meaning of rescuing and protecting. Perhaps when the wording is different, they feared something was missing in between, so they added it later. But this one is also not needed. Namo Gunaraja Vyuha Bodhisattva. Everyone remember the Gunaraja Vyuha Bodhisattva, right? There's specifically a chapter in the Nirvana Sutra called the chapter on Gunaraja Vyuha Bodhisattva. There's specifically a chapter in the Nirvana Sutra. Then Namo Vaidurya Prabha Bodhisattva. This also appeared in the Nirvana Sutra and is also in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Abhaya Bodhisattva. It's also in the Nirvana Sutra and also appeared in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Sagararaja Bodhisattva. Sagararaja Bodhisattva is also in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Simhanada Bodhisattva. I also remember that in the Nirvana Sutra, there's specifically a chapter called the chapter on Simhanada Bodhisattva. Actually, this Simhanada Bodhisattva, he is particularly skillful at dispelling beings' web of doubt, the web of suspicion. At that time, Simhanada Bodhisattva asked Shakyamuni Buddha, he said, "The Buddha has already said that we people are like amalaka fruits, which means mature in both appearance and essence, or immature in both appearance and essence, mature in essence but immature in appearance, mature in appearance but immature in essence." So there are 4 kinds of people in total. For the first 2, everyone knows mature in both appearance and essence. Everyone can see this. It's relatively easy. If immature in both appearance and essence, that's also relatively easy. These 2 are relatively easy to analyze. But the other ones only mature in appearance or mature in essence. How exactly do we distinguish these? At that time, he asked the Buddha. At that time, how did the Buddha answer? In this situation, you must first dwell together with them. After that, dwell long with them, not just dwelling together, but also contact them for a long time. Then rely on wisdom to analyze. After that, deeply examine, deeply understand and observe through 4 aspects, that is, dwelling together and dwelling long, and also relying on wisdom, and also deeply observing and understanding. Only after this can one distinguish whether inside and outside are mature or not, whether they have broken precepts, whether their conduct is in accordance with Dharma, and so on. This is true indeed. When we first come into contact with some people, we don't particularly understand them. This person seems to speak especially well on the appearance, but whether they really act accordingly as they talked or not, looking at some people from the outside, they may seem especially deficient, but actually their mind is not as their external appearance shows. These 2 are relatively hard to analyze. If you want to analyze them, indeed, people often says, time reveals a person's heart, distance tests a horse's strength. Worldly people also say this. If you slowly contact them for a period of time, this person's conduct may not be so good, but their mind is actually very good. This person doesn't particularly pay attention when speaking, but the person is not that bad. This person talks all fancy, speaks especially well, but their mind is actually very bad. Slowly, after a long time, we'll also know. Then relying on wisdom, we can also observe. If we observe deeply relying on wisdom, we may need to contact them more and use some methods. This Simhanada Bodhisattva is actually very skillful in observing people's minds, and in this aspect, Namo Dharan Bodhisattva, Namo Narayana Bodhisattva. As for Narayana Bodhisattva, it is in the Sutra of Buddha names. Dharan Bodhisattva and Narayana Bodhisattva. In the Tibetan, both of these are not there. It seems they're also not found in the Dunhuang versions, but they are in the Taisho canon. So we won't delete these, let's still keep them. Because Narayana Bodhisattva and Dharan Bodhisattva did appear earlier, but in this place the Tibetan doesn't have them. Let's see, we'll research this further later. Then we teach Namo Laksana Samdarshana Bodhisattva. Laksana Samdarshana Bodhisattva, in the next chapter we'll teach about him. This Bodhisattva is very representative. We'll teach about him below. He is quite famous in this scripture and also in the Golden Light Sutra. He is also quite famous. We'll teach about this Bodhisattva later. He's also in the Sutra of Buddha names, Namo Dharandhara Bodhisattva. There's a sutra called the Ratnaketudaran Sutra mentioned that. The Ratnaketudaran Sutra says this Bodhisattva made a vow to benefit beings through a female form. His mind is like the great earth, able to uphold all things. He can uphold many appearances. Perhaps among us, we people still have differences. People's wisdom has differences. Some people can only accept part of things. For example, some of us may have great faith in Vajrayana, but not in the exoteric sutras. Some are good with Abhidharma, but not with Madhyamaka. Some do engineering projects fairly well, but can't memorize texts. Some can cook dishes reasonably well, but can't sweep floors. Each person has different strong points. Those who are very comprehensive and can do everything are relatively rare. As for this Dharandhara Bodhisattva, he can do everything in all aspects. Moreover, he has one characteristic. He benefits beings through a female form, causing many people to be delighted. Namo Rashmi Vyuha Bodhisattva. Rashmi Vyuha Bodhisattva also appeared earlier. Rashmi Vyuha Bodhisattva and Prabha Bodhisattva appeared earlier. They're also in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Mahapratibhana Bodhisattva. There is a Sadharma Pundarka Sutra translated by Dharmaraksa in the past. At that time, Dharmaraksa's translation and this translation, many of the Bodhisattva names are relatively the same. The Sadharma Pundarka Sutra and the Lotus Sutra, actually, they're both the Lotus Sutra, which we taught last year. The Lotus Sutra was translated by Kumarajva. The Sadharma Pundarka Sutra was translated by Dharmaraksa. As everyone knows, in Kumarajva's translation of the Lotus Sutra, this bodhisattva is called Mahapratibhana Bodhisattva, one who loves to speak. Loving debate and loving to speak are the same. Some of our Dharma teachers particularly love to speak. That day during the pandemic, I heard that those who love to speak were especially miserable because they often couldn't find anyone. Those who don't love to speak were very happy. They felt this time was a very good opportunity. Many opportunities to not to speak. Our Mahapratibhana and Mahapratibhana Bodhisattva have all appeared in scriptures. Namo Maitrabala Bodhisattva. This is also in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Mahakaruna Bodhisattva. Mahakaruna Bodhisattva appeared in the Karuna Pundarka Sutra. The Karuna Pundarka Sutra says that before Ratnagarbha Tathagata, Mahakaruna Bodhisattva made a vow to liberate beings in the 5 turbidities. Mahakaruna Bodhisattva and Sagaradvaja Brahmin, or Ratnasagara Brahmin, perhaps they're the same, or perhaps they're different names in different scriptures. Namo Shvararaja Bodhisattva is also in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Balashraya Bodhisattva is there. Namo Gunashraya Bodhisattva is also there. Namo Sarvatraga Bodhisattva is also there. Then Sarvasamgraha Bodhisattva is in the Sutra of Buddha names. Dipamkara Bodhisattva also existed. Namo Samantaprabha Bodhisattva. This appeared in the Prajnaparamita Sutra. I don't remember if it's in the Sutra of Buddha names. It seems not. Perhaps there is. You all look and see if it's there. When some people write, they write above there is, then write not, then there is or not, beginning to be free from the 4 extremes and 8 elaborations, existence, non-existence, both neither. So what I'm teaching is also sometimes rather chaotic. Write there is, then not. There is, perhaps not. Namo Sarvasamgraha Bodhisattva should be existed. Satyaprabha Bodhisattva existed. Then Kuluta Bodhisattva in the Sutra of Buddha names, the character kin at the end isn't there. It's just Kuluta Bodhisattva. What does the Tibetan say? Eliminating wrong faith, eliminating wrong faith. Bodhisattva of eliminating wrong faith, eliminating wrong faith, eliminating wrong faith. Namo Deva Prakasha Bodhisattva is there. Namo Ratna Raja Bodhisattva. I haven't found it in the Sutra of Buddha names. There's a Bodhisattva Mandala Sutra where it appeared. Namo Vipula Prabha Bodhisattva is in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Shiksanaya Bodhisattva, this Tao, in the Sutra of Buddha names, its guide. Later there's also a Namo Nayaka Bodhisattva. The Tibetan doesn't have it, but the Dunhuang versions all have it. The earlier Shiksanaya Bodhisattva also existed, and the later Nayaka Bodhisattva also existed. It's also in the Taisho canon. So the earlier Shiksadao, perhaps Tao as in guide, is more reasonable. In the Sutra of Buddha names, it's Shiksanaya Bodhisattva. It seems the Dunhuang versions also have the meaning of guide. But the next one, Nayaka Bodhisattva, which is in some other scriptures, it also existed. And in the Sagaramati Paripucha Sutra, Nayaka Bodhisattva said something. I want to share this with everyone too. If one does not understand the Dharma of the right path, one practices wrong paths. Thus one cannot protect the true Dharma. This statement is very important. Now, many of us don't know what the right path is because we ourselves have never studied, never systematically studied and contemplated, never comprehensively studied and contemplated. Perhaps we've only read one or two Buddhist books. Actually, if you only read one or two books, we can say it's like the tip of the iceberg, a drop in the ocean. You absolutely cannot measure the vast as the sea, thousands of scriptures and treatises of Buddhist texts. Now, some of our so-called Buddhists or Buddhist researchers, they only read one or two books and think they are very proficient in Buddhism. Actually, it's not like this. If you don't understand the true Dharma path, you may also practice wrongly. If you guide others, you'll also mislead students. So if you want to protect the Dharma, you fundamentally cannot say so. If some of us want to protect the true Dharma, I also hope you should first study and contemplate very seriously. So what Nayaka Bodhisattva said is indeed very correct. If you don't understand the Buddha Dharma, then whether you protect the Dharma, propagate the Dharma, or benefit beings, this is very, very difficult. Therefore, we Dharma friends who study Buddhism should learn it for yourself. Some seem like whether tutoring or teaching exams, they're always studying for the teacher. I read one book. Are you happy? Are you going to give me a prize? Actually, for yourself, one reason is to tame your own afflictions. This is very important for studying Dharma. Another reason is to protect the true Dharma, not for the teacher. Sometimes among us Buddhists, the overall level now is not very high, especially regarding the exoteric sutras, tantras, and the 5 major treatises. Nowadays, there are fewer and fewer people are proficient in all of them. It's the same as what I said the day before yesterday. Now, many people, because of cell phones and various distracting causes, especially now, each era is different. Now, many people, I heard that some monastics also play what are now called TikTok, Kwaisho short videos, and also live streaming, food broadcasting, all sorts of things. If practitioners spend all day doing these things, it probably doesn't have much meaning for your practices. It will really waste a lot of time for yourself. Especially as monastics, some people are also saying online now, if this is the case, you shouldn't have become a monastic. Because now on TikTok, some of the formats inside are so attractive. Many young people are relatively not good at discernment. Perhaps sometimes they just play casually. But playing like this, what kind of benefits can you gain from it? And what kind of truth and wisdom can you gain in monasteries? You can also think about it. At this time, we should try our best to stop distraction and try our best to integrate into the true Dharma. Today, we also had a meeting here. Now, these new monastics, these relatively young monastics, generally, fewer and fewer of them hold prayer beads in their hands. This may be a trend. In the past, the elderly practitioners in Larunga were typically seen with prayer wheels and beads. Basically never left their bodies. Indeed, this is true. But now, these young people, if they speak, they often speak some internet language or often love to watch TV series using some language from inside to communicate. Those who love to watch them love to watch. They themselves will have opportunities to communicate because everyone has a common language. But if you especially love to study and contemplate, if you associate with them, there's no way. Actually, on one hand, some of our teachers and managers should know a little bit. That would be better. Today, when we had a management meeting, I told the managers, if you yourselves won't be seduced by external objects, you should look at TikTok. It might be good. Why is this? Because when you manage, you need to know why so many people like it so much. But what is this method that we can stop them to watch it? Should we completely prohibit it or think of another way? Because in our new era, new things arise. When new things arise, then as Buddhists or people in the world, including those in education, in various aspects, we discover a new problem. For new problems, we need new solutions. This solution must also be reasonable and appropriate. If we completely abandon those new things and just like some relatively old traditional people say, every new thing that cannot be accepted, and also Gendun Chofel once said in the past, old things are all demonic, new things are all celestial. This kind of statement is incorrect, so we must analyze everything in 2 aspects. Only then might we understand many problems. If we completely use old concepts, this world has already completely changed. There may be no way. If you want to live back in 20 or 30 years ago, there's no way. All of life has already completely changed. But if you unswervingly follow this era forward, most people are very confusedly moving forward. So if we follow them blindly, perhaps in the end we'll have nowhere to turn. We ourselves remain obstinately unrepentant. There's this danger among us, especially for practitioners. Sometimes it's very necessary to look at this world. To look at this world is very necessary. Not to be turned by external objects, not to be seized by external objects. Now, this is also especially important. This bodhisattva teaches us to study the right path. Otherwise, our practice may be mistaken. Many people ask questions, how should I practice now? Actually, you yourself haven't studied and contemplated well. If you studied and contemplated well, such simple questions as yours, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have already answered them, and the lineage masters have also already answered them. They've answered many, many times. Very many times, right? Ah, I misspoke. An adjective, a new term. I didn't understand. When you speak wearing masks, I can't understand. Namo Mahaksanti Bodhisattva is in the Sutra of Buddha names. Pusparaja Bodhisattva seems to be in the Kushalamula Samgraha Sutra. Then Puspa Samkaya Bodhisattva also existed. Namo Prajnaprabha Bodhisattva in the Mahasamnipata Sutra that we taught also existed. Prajnaprabha Bodhisattva said at that time, "World-honored one, foolish people cannot protect the Dharma. I now cultivate wisdom, thus I can protect the Dharma." Prajnaprabha Bodhisattva said, he said before the world-honored one, if people are especially foolish, they don't even understand their own practice. As for protecting the Dharma, needless to say, now because I cultivate wisdom, my wisdom is vast. In this way, I can protect the Buddha Dharma. So what I just taught is basically the same. Everyone should cultivate wisdom and study wisdom, or should increase wisdom. A lot of our past wisdom may be worldly wisdom. Now transcendent wisdom is also very important. Actually, this worldly wisdom, what we may have studied, is mostly now, for example, Darwin's theory of evolution. The entire world, human history, so much is based on this. But is this reasonable? We cannot completely deny it. For example, regarding the origin of humanity, if Buddhism says that at the very beginning of humanity, they were very perfect and people were especially tall, and gradually now we've reached the beings of the degenerate world. So the entire world has already changed to be like this. As for Christianity, they say that all humanity, Adam and Eve created humanity at the beginning. It came like this. And there's Darwin's theory saying our human beings were slowly transformed from fish and animals. And in the future, people may become smarter and smarter, gradually becoming like Buddhas eventually. In this regard, for example, in Tibetan ancient history, there's also the theory that Tibetans came from monkeys. For the Han region, there's also Yuanmu Man from Yunnan. But although these have now become what could be considered mainstream culture, this mainstream, after another few hundred years, after so many more years, whether they can be reliable is also hard to say. Now we all think, scientists all think, that the origin of humanity is like this. Darwin's theory, roughly starting in 1858, a whole new science arose. Actually, about this fact that we may still need to research and observe in the future about what exactly our humanity is like. Are we getting stupider or better? It's all hard to say. If, according to animals, people keep changing more and more, our 2,000 plus years of civilization, 3,000 plus years of civilization, plus 10,000 years including fossils, very beautiful cities obtained from archaeology. Now they also have no way to verify them. If it's really like this, then perhaps we, for example, whether it's Confucius or Plato or at the time of Shakyamuni Buddha, if people had just changed from animals not long ago, now our wisdom should far surpass theirs. But sometimes it's also hard to say. We can say it this way. So I'm also not standing on Buddhism's position today. I'm not standing on any other. Actually, other religions that all are acknowledged by tens of thousands of people. For example, Christianity, in the whole world, there are so many believers, and there should be 2 or 3 billion people. They acknowledge this theory. Then if you have no faith at all, perhaps now the mainstream scientific culture or Darwin's theory and other religions, which each of them has their own theories. And among our common people, we can't treat it as a myth. Common people have great wisdom, and their theories, which is including the Han region and Tibetan areas and the others, including Iran and India as well. There are also different theories throughout the world. If you really research the earliest human civilization, what each says is different. If you completely rely on this, perhaps what we now think is correct may not necessarily be correct. As we taught before, now in our entire cosmic space, dark matter and visible matter, dark matter is 97 point something percent, and visible matter is also only 2 or 3%. Our visible matter now, many scientists are observing. In the process of observing, our visible matter basically has gas, liquid, and solid, and also something called plasma. Everyone knows this plasma, actually what it occupies is 99.9%. Then gas, liquid, and solid, what they occupy is 0.01%. In this way, what can we obtain? Perhaps people in our world now, people generally regard material things as real. They believe only what they see. This is completely correct. But this correctness, we also can't completely deny it. But what we don't know is indeed very, very much. Not to mention dark matter, not to mention mysterious things, not to mention celestial bodies, the cosmos, the condition of this immeasurable world. All these, we are completely like the blind and deaf. We fundamentally don't know. But some things that people consider perfectly reasonable are actually matters that scientists are constantly theorizing about and constantly analyzing, constantly researching. They also don't have a complete conclusion. So the so-called name of science, that when we explain it, it's a process of continuous research. It doesn't say it's already completely determined wisdom. So sometimes when we mention the names of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas or the space of the cosmos, some people's way of thinking has completely become rigid wisdom. It's already fixed. This world is just like this. Since I was small, my curriculum had this. It must be like this. Humanity came like this. But this is your opinion. But in all the knowledge in the world, it's just one part of the theory. This one part of the theory, perhaps what we now acknowledge. Now, for example, now the theory of evolution. Now most scientists acknowledge it. But the religious world and other various different thoughts don't necessarily acknowledge it. They each have different opinions. Each of them think it should be like this. After another period of time, perhaps this mainstream culture will change again. For how many years did people continue to believe in geocentrism and heliocentrism? Humanity has held this view for many years. But later, all of these beliefs were completely overturned. The conflict between classical physics and quantum physics viewpoints, I believe that everyone should also be clear about this. Sometimes when we study the names of these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas or the mysteries of the cosmos, we may also need to have relatively inclusive thinking. Perhaps it will be like this. Perhaps with my small horizons, I definitely have no way to accommodate all the various forms and all-encompassing phenomena of the entire cosmos. We may need to have an inclusive mind to accept them. Otherwise, what you learned in school, which is a very narrow transmission, and your original teacher himself also thought this way in his whole life. Perhaps his teacher's teacher didn't think this way, but this teacher thought this way. The teacher's students also have a kind of short-sighted. It's like a snake put in a bamboo tube. They fundamentally have no way, no creativity, no developed thinking. In this way, our thinking is indeed especially narrow. So at this time, I'm also not saying that what Buddhism says is absolutely true. Perhaps within Buddhism there are some historical, should be said, in mysticism. There may also be many relatively mysterious, secret things. And Buddhism often talks about hidden meaning, definitive and provisional meaning, and so on. There are also reasons for analyzing like this. So what we just taught, some bodhisattvas say we need wisdom. Without wisdom, it's indeed very hard to access, very hard to open up. Then we teach about Sagaramati Bodhisattva. Just now we taught Prajnaprabha Bodhisattva. This Sagaramati Bodhisattva, there's a story in the Mahasamnipata Sutra. When Sagaramati Bodhisattva was together with the Buddha, at that time they were teaching about subduing Mara's activities. At this time, Mara Papayan was unhappy and came with a great crowd of Mara. At this time, Sagaramati Bodhisattva said, "I'm preparing to send Mara Papayan to the adorned world." At this time, Shariputra came out and asked, "What is the adorned world? What do they do there?" Sagaramati Bodhisattva said, "In the east there's a place called the adorned world. That Buddha there is especially powerful. When he turns the Dharma wheel, he specifically turns it for Maras, taming Mara hosts. He's very powerful." At this time, Mara Papayan didn't want to go. He didn't want to be dispatched there. He immediately wanted to run. But at that time, whether the Buddha or Sagaramati Bodhisattva's blessings, the Mara couldn't run. He couldn't even become invisible. He was already stuck there. At that time, the Mara king said to the Buddha, "Save me. I can't be like this now." The Buddha said, "It's no use asking me. You should have Sagaramati Bodhisattva save you." Then he begged Sagaramati Bodhisattva to save him. He didn't want to go. He wanted to stay here obediently. Here is relatively nice. He didn't want to go on a business trip, but Sagaramati Bodhisattva blessed him. "It's fine. We'll just go look. It's nothing." Then he touched his head with his right hand. Through his spiritual power, they went to a Buddha land in a very distant place. When they arrived at the Buddha land, many bodhisattvas despised the Mara king. "So ugly, so filthy. Where did this one come from?" At that time, the local Buddha said, "This is the Mara king from Shakyamuni Buddha's Saha world. He came here through Sagaramati Bodhisattva's introduction. Some words may seem somewhat bit funny. At this time, many urged the Mara king to generate Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi mind. He also reluctantly generated it. After generating it, those bodhisattvas had the Mara king teach the Mahasamnipata Sutra. They set up an especially high Dharma throne. At this time, this Mara king, later through Sagaramati Bodhisattva's blessing power, he sat on the Dharma throne and taught them a complete Mahasamnipata Sutra without missing a single word. Then he returned. So this is taught in the Mahasamnipata Sutra. So sometimes Mara kings, when they receive the blessings of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they will also teach Dharma. Stories of Manjushra Anesham Bodhisattva are also relatively numerous. Just now it was also said that under Sagaramati Bodhisattva's blessings, he caused even the Mara king to be able to teach the Dharma. In this way, when we teach Dharma, we also pray to Sagaramati Bodhisattva. His blessing upon the Mara king, the Dharma taught was so good, not missing a single word. Then when we sincerely teach Dharma to others, Sagaramati Bodhisattva will definitely bless us. This is what I think. But perhaps Sagaramati Bodhisattva has always specialized in taming Mara hosts. This is his specialty. There's also Namo Dardhamati Bodhisattva. Dardhamati Bodhisattva, which is in the Shurangama Samadhi Sutra, there's a dialogue between Dardhamati Bodhisattva and Manjushra Bodhisattva. During the dialogue, Manjushra Bodhisattva said something. "What is called great learning?" he asked. When asked if one question of Dharma can explain 1,000 myriad billions of meanings, and if expounded for 1,000 myriad kalpas, one's wisdom and eloquence are inexhaustible, this is called great learning. The definition of great learning written is, it's not like we often say, "Oh, today I study this, tomorrow I study that," and I listen to especially many teachings. Manjushra Bodhisattva's teaching here to Dardhamati Bodhisattva. Actually, our great learning is when he hears one sentence, then draws inferences from it. You completely open all the content. For example, I hear the Lotus Sutra. I take this principle. After that, no matter how long I teach, I can't finish teaching it. Of course, this is possible. Indeed, one must have eloquence. Like Manjushra Bodhisattva and Dardhamati Bodhisattva, they may be able to do it. For us, sometimes we want to teach one principle and after a while it's gone, may be able to do it. For us, sometimes we want to teach one principle and after a while it's gone. We don't know what to teach. For example, if someone asks me to give a speech, I need to prepare in advance. How many hours should I speak? If it's 2 hours, I need to think about 2 hours. Really, after 2 hours, I may temporarily have nothing more to teach. We are generally like this, but a bodhisattva's great learning is not like this. From one sentence, he can teach for so many kalpas. Of course, this is a bodhisattva's manifestation. It may be very difficult, but sometimes our so-called great learning has different interpretations. I also want to provide this knowledge to everyone here. Namo Shakyakula Bodhisattva. Shakyakula Bodhisattva Muti. In the Tibetan, it means Shakya clan. In the Dunhuang versions, there's also Shakyanara. And in some scriptures, the Mo in Shakyamara is the Mara, as in Mara king. Some teach it like this. Namo Suvarnaprabha Bodhisattva. Suvarnaprabha Bodhisattva is in the Golden Light Sutra. There's a Golden Light Confession and Heaven Worship Liturgy. In that Golden Light Confession and Heaven Worship Liturgy, it says, with single-minded devotion, I pay homage to Suvarnaprabha Bodhisattva Mahasattva. With single-minded devotion, I pay homage to Ratnagarbha Bodhisattva Mahasattva. With single-minded devotion, I pay homage to Sadaprarudita Bodhisattva Mahasattva. What follows is all in the liturgy. In the Sutra of Buddha Names, I don't seem to have seen Suvarnaprabha Bodhisattva. It is in the Golden Light Sutra. Namo Ratnagarbha Bodhisattva is in the Sutra of Buddha Names. Namo Sadaprarudita Bodhisattva. It's in other scriptures, constantly grieving. In some versions of the Prajnaparamita Sutra, there's Sadaprarudita and Sadapralapa. It seems in the Prajnaparamita Sutra, Sadapralapa Bodhisattva and the following Dharmogata Bodhisattva, these two also have Sadaprarudita and Dharmotara. There's also this. So this Sadaprarudita was always compassionate towards sentient beings and is a bodhisattva who loves to cry and loves to grieve. The Dharmaparyaya Samukhaya Sutra says that bodhisattvas' tears have three kinds of tears. One is when seeing virtuous people who likes Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and the Gurus. So at such times, Bodhisattvas will shed tears. This is one kind of tears. There's a second kind of tears. When seeing people without virtue, like beggars, pitiful beings, the field of compassion, at that time, Bodhisattvas is shedding tears. And another is when making great generosity, joyfully leaping and shedding tears. So Bodhisattvas' tears have three kinds. One is, as just mentioned, for virtuous ones or for non-virtuous ones, or when making great generosity. Perhaps it's not dharma generosity. Sometimes the body is especially joyful, like those who win awards. After winning an award, they're especially happy. I've seen some people who, when they win an award, cry for a very long time. Our ordinary people's tears have several kinds. There are selfish tears, there are tears of anger anyway, various kinds of tears. Ordinary people's tears and Bodhisattva's tears are different. In the past, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok often cried when he taught the extensive biography of the lives of Buddha Shakyamuni. Sometimes His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok would say, as an elderly person, if I often cry like this, it's very disrespectful, very bad. Sometimes he'd say that tears shed from remembering Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, from remembering Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, accumulate merit for countless kalpas. This is very meaningful. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok sometimes spoke like this in the past. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok, especially when teaching biographies of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, often cried. And whenever he taught about the deeds of his root guru, he also often shed tears. This is Sadaprarudita Bodhisattva. There's also Dharmotara Bodhisattva. Dharmotara Bodhisattva appeared in the Ratnakuta Sutra, Namo Dhanashrestha Bodhisattva. As for Dhanashrestha Bodhisattva, Dana, including in the Danhuang scriptures and Tibetan, it's Dana as in wealth, Dana as in money. Perhaps this is better. Namo Shaila Jyotis Bodhisattva. Shaila Jyotis Bodhisattva. Below, some are not in the Sutra of Buddha names. Most are in the Sagara Nagaraja Paripurcha Sutra. Many are in that one. Many of the Bodhisattva names in this series, the Sagara Nagaraja Paripurcha Sutra, has 4 volumes in total. They're in that one. Originally, we taught about the 10 virtues that is relatively short, one of the Sagara Nagaraja Paripurcha Sutra. So in the long one, many of the Bodhisattva names here aren't found in the Sutra of Buddha names. For example, Shaila Jyotis Bodhisattva, Shaila Praja Bodhisattva, and also Mahatejas Bodhisattva. These are all in that one. Dharaneshvara Bodhisattva and also Shaila Vajra Bodhisattva. Shaila Vajra Bodhisattva is all in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Dharmodgata Bodhisattva. As for Dharmodgata Bodhisattva, it's not in the Tibetan, but it is in the Danhuang versions. It should be like this. Dharmodgata Bodhisattva. Then Shailashikharadvaja Bodhisattva also existed. Shailadvaja Bodhisattva also existed, and also Shailaraja Bodhisattva. Shailaraja Bodhisattva is in the Sagaranagaraja Paripurcha Sutra. It's not in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Marajitkara Bodhisattva. This one is there in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Meghasvara Bodhisattva. Meghasvara Bodhisattva appeared in the Maharatna Kutta Sutra. Namo Megharaja Bodhisattva. Megharaja Bodhisattva is also in the Sutra of Buddha names. Actually, this series below is all in the Sagaranagaraja Paripurcha Sutra. Namo Gajasvara Raja Bodhisattva. Gajasvara Raja Bodhisattva should be in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Ratna Chakra Bodhisattva existed. Namo Ratna Tejas Bodhisattva. The yin here often has the meaning of light. This is not in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Ratna Jalin Bodhisattva. Namo Ratna Garbha Bodhisattva. Namo Ratna Prabha Bodhisattva. Namo Ratna Samadhi Bodhisattva. These are all in the Sagaranagaraja Paripurcha Sutra. In the Sutra of Buddha names, this entire series is not there, including Ratnamudra Bodhisattva, which is none of them are existed. Namo Ratnaketu Bodhisattva existed. Namo Ratnalamkara Bodhisattva existed. All are Ratna, a treasure. Namo Ratnajala Bodhisattva existed. Actually, in the Sutra of Buddha names, it seems between fascicles 20 and 25, there are many bodhisattva names. The others are scattered. These are also sometimes not particularly clear. Namo Ratna Jyotis Bodhisattva. There's a sutra called the Sustainer Bodhisattva Sutra. In it, there's a chapter called Ratna Jyotis Bodhisattva chapter, a chapter in the Sustainer Bodhisattva Sutra. Namo Ratnadapa Bodhisattva. As for Ratnadapa, there's also Deng, as in climbing a mountain. Perhaps it's Deng, as in climbing a mountain, including in Dunhuang. It's also like this. In our Tibetan, this lamp also has the meaning of lamp, the meaning of burning. Perhaps in ancient times, Deng, as in climbing a mountain, also had the meaning of Deng, as in lamp. Namo Ratna Darshana Bodhisattva existed. Namo Ratna Sambhava Bodhisattva existed too. Namo Ratna Kirta Bodhisattva not existed. This one is not needed. It's also not in the Tibetan version. They probably added it later. Namo Dharmapriya Bodhisattva. Dharmapriya Bodhisattva is in the Sutra of Buddha names and also in the Kushalamula Samgraha Sutra. In the Kushalamula Samgraha Sutra, it says that Dharmapriya Bodhisattva especially loves the Dharma, loves seeking Dharma, loves listening to Dharma, loves studying Dharma, especially fond of the Dharma. Once, in order to seek the Dharma, when he went out, he was a prince at that time. When he went out, there was a person who possessed the Buddha Dharma. He had a verse, but he wouldn't transmit it to him casually. He sat beside an especially deep pit. He said, if everything on your body, you can give it to me. Because as a prince at that time, his body was covered with gold, silver, treasures, jewels. He said, if you give me everything on your body, I can transmit one verse to you. Without hesitation, he prepared to write it down and give it to him. But later, this person said, no, if it's like this, after you hear the Dharma, you might snatch all of these back from me. If you want to snatch them back because you are physically strong and powerful, I probably can't match you. You should promise me that you will jump into that pit. Later, he also didn't transmit it. Later, that bodhisattva, at that time, Dharmapriya Bodhisattva, in order to obtain this verse, firstly to obtain the verse, then he jumped down. When he jumped down, he spoke a truthful statement. Later, the four heavenly kings caught him. He didn't fall down. At this time, the person has generated faith towards Dharmapriya Bodhisattva. He was willing to confess. He was willing to return the original wealth to him. At this time, Dharmapriya Bodhisattva said, I've already given it to you. What I've spit out, I cannot pick back up. What I've given, I don't need to regret. He didn't accept it. So for Dharmapriya Bodhisattva, who is especially loved the Dharma, whether we are monastics or lay people in the process of seeking the Dharma, certainly there will sometimes be some hardships and difficulties. There will certainly be all sorts of things. We need to face all kinds of situations. But at this time, we should think about how these great masters of the past sought the Dharma. After seeking the Dharma, what is the meaning for oneself in this life and future lives? So for this reason, we don't need to jump our entire body into a fire pit. We don't need to. It should be said that it's relatively simple to accept. So this is the aspiration for seeking the Dharma that we should have. This love of the Dharma is very important. Some are like what's taught in the words of my perfect teacher mentioned, that they have no interest in the Buddha Dharma at all. It's like placing green grass before a vicious dog. It has no interest at all. As soon as they hear the Dharma book, they feel especially averse. On one hand, this is perhaps due to past life causes. On the other hand, they don't know the importance of the Dharma. Perhaps this is the reason. No matter what, for some people, they will place great importance on the Dharma in their lives. Some were not like this before because they didn't understand. But later, they persistently studied the Dharma, sought the Dharma, listened to the Dharma, and then practiced the Dharma. They place great importance on the Dharma in their lives. Actually, this should be very important. In the biography of Longchenpa, it says that when he relied on Guru Kumaraja in a short period of time, he moved house 9 times. But for the sake of the Dharma, he didn't generate aversion. Actually, Longchenpa should be considered a founding patriarch. Now it's been over 600 years since he passed. His wisdom shines brilliantly at the pinnacle of the world. But when he was seeking the Dharma in his manifestation, if he needed to do this, I think our afflictions are so deep and our karma is also so powerful. Why would we not practice austerities for the Dharma? In this regard, everyone should also usually, when encountering just a little bit of difficulty, I've encountered obstacles, I'm leaving. Generally, a person with strong will when encountering anything doesn't easily lose faith and also won't change their behavior much. Especially in the process of seeking the Dharma and practicing the Dharma, a person must be steadfast. If a person is not steadfast, today seeking this, tomorrow seeking that, today studying this, tomorrow studying that, in the end, oneself won't obtain a true practice to cultivate. So I also mentioned the day before yesterday that everyone should choose a practice to cultivate for life. Of course, this requires having stability, just like what's taught in our treatise on the modes of being. The foundation of everything is being steadfast. Only after having steadfastness is there wisdom. After having wisdom, then all other virtuous qualities can appear layer by layer. We humans are like a tree. The tree's roots should be steadfastness. If there are no tree roots, then the tree's flowers, leaves, and fruits will not be existed. How can you work on them? I feel there's not particularly great meaning. Today I may have taught a lot of these Buddha names. Perhaps there's still more, not much more. Actually, not that much. So everyone, don't be anxious. Where did we up to? It's Dharmapriya Bodhisattva, right? Namo Vishuddharaja Bodhisattva. Namo Usnasa Bodhisattva. Namo Suvarnaprabha Bodhisattva. Suvarnaprabha Bodhisattva is mentioned in the Maharatnakuta Sutra, Namo Ratnakuda Bodhisattva. Ratnakuda Bodhisattva is in the Mahasamnipata Sutra. There's specifically a Ratnakuda Bodhisattva chapter. I don't seem to have seen it in the Sutra of Buddha names. It seems there is one. Namo Sahasra Rashmi Bodhisattva. This name existed. Namo Yamaraja Vilokana Bodhisattva. As for Yamaraja Vilokana in Dunhuang, it's this Yamaraja Vilokana. It's also in the Sutra of Buddha names. But as for this Yamaraja Vilokana, how should it be explained, right? There's one called Yangwa. Yangwa seems to have the meaning of being very light, that kind of lightness. It has this meaning. But this is perhaps possibly a transliteration from Sanskrit. As for Yuanxian, what does Yuanxian mean? In Dunhuang, it's also written like this. Yuanxian, there's also another one that says Yuanyan, right? In Tibetan, light and airy. Then Yuanyan, whatever is fine. Yuanxian, right? Yuanxian Bodhisattva. Namo Vishuddha Bodhisattva. This one was added by them. It's not needed. This Vishuddha Bodhisattva. Namo Alokavara Bodhisattva. Alokavara Bodhisattva is in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Prajna Bodhisattva. This one is not needed. It was also added later. It's not in Dunhuang. Namo Kandraprabha Bodhisattva. This one is in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Kandraprabha Bodhisattva. Kandraprabha Bodhisattva, translated by Faxian. There's a sutra called the Kandraprabha Bodhisattva Sutra. has this bodhisattva. Namo Dharmakakra Bodhisattva, this one also existed. Namo Prabhavi Shuddha Bodhisattva, this one is also in the Sutra of Buddha names. Namo Nityaksema Bodhisattva. Nityaksema Bodhisattva should be in the Yoga Karabhumi Dharma Pariyaya Sutra. There's a chapter called Nityaksema Bodhisattva's Questions, a chapter in a sutra called Nityaksema Bodhisattva's Questions. Namo Samantaguna Bodhisattva. Samantaguna Bodhisattva also existed. Namo Samantaprabha Bodhisattva. Samantaprabha Bodhisattva in the Maharatna Kutta Sutra. There's an assembly called Samantaprabha Bodhisattva Assembly. As for this Bodhisattva, Hui is the Hui in meeting. It also means chapter. Samantaprabha Bodhisattva Assembly. Namo Jayaketu Bodhisattva. This one also exists. Namo Mrdugosa Bodhisattva. As for this Ru, in Tibetan it means soft. Perhaps this one is also actually Ruyin Bodhisattva, soft voice would be better, but this Ru perhaps also has the meaning of softness. Mr. Dugosa Bodhisattva, a very soft voice, not one that sounds especially coarse when you hear it. When you hear it, wow, your heart is about to explode. Originally the heart was fine, but after hearing some people's voices, the heart immediately can't take it. Many people start having to help them up. Why? Because I just heard some people's voices, so now I can't handle it. I need to go to the hospital. If it's like this, how pitiful. Generally for the bodhisattvas who are relatively gentle and warm, especially joyful to see, joyful to hear. Bodhisattvas' characteristics are all like this. They bring joy and happiness to every sentient being. That's Mitadugosa Bodhisattva speaking eloquently, especially gentle. It seems like, wow, when speaking you don't know if they're singing or talking. However, nowadays songs, the songs from when we were young, perhaps due to habitual tendencies, feel relatively nice to listen to. Many songs nowadays, we really can't listen to them. I don't know if you're like this, perhaps it's still habitual tendencies, but now many young people especially like them. We can't understand them at all. So in the future, this world of ours might really become incomprehensible. What we think is gaudy and colorful, perhaps the entire color of the world might change. I don't know how it will be. Namo Gunajvala Bodhisattva. This one is also there. Namo Laksana Prabha Bodhisattva is also there. Namo Sagara Kandra Bodhisattva, these are basically all there. I'll just recite them directly because these are all in the scriptures. Namo Sagaramati Bodhisattva, Namo Jayakandra Bodhisattva, Namo Vishuddhimati Bodhisattva, Namo Uttama Prabha Bodhisattva, Namo Kandra Garbha Bodhisattva, Namo Surya Prabha Bodhisattva, Namo Vajra Bodhisattva, Namo Jvala Dvaja Bodhisattva, Namo Mahaguna Bodhisattva, Namo Sagara Prabha Bodhisattva, Namo Sagara Vyuha Bodhisattva, Namo Vipashin Bodhisattva. Vipashin in Tibetan, it means illuminating objects. Don't we have something called illuminating object? In logic, there's something called illuminating object. It means able to discern. Namo Prabhamati Bodhisattva, Namo Guna Bodhisattva, Namo Prabhaprapta Bodhisattva. As for this Ming in Tibetan, Ming is light and Da seems to be liberation. Didn't we have earlier something called great pervasion and extensive square? Great pervasion also has the meaning of liberation. It means great liberation and extensive square sutra. So here Ming Da means light liberation, Prabha Prapta Bodhisattva, Namo Guhya Shasana Bodhisattva, Namo Sunanda Bodhisattva. As for Sunanda Bodhisattva, in Tibetan, it should mean striving to give. Very powerfully giving, striving to give. Originally in Sanskrit, giving is called dana. Generally, precepts are shla, perhaps a bit close, but here it means giving. Dana Bodhisattva or Danapraya Bodhisattva, or a Bodhisattva who extremely loves giving. In the Sutra of Buddha names, there's also Sunanda Bodhisattva. The Dana Bodhisattva that follows was added later, so it's not needed. Namo Rupabala Bodhisattva, Namo Shanta Bodhisattva, Namo Tirodana Bodhisattva, Namo Eka Bodhisattva, Namo Dasha Bodhisattva, Namo Shata Bodhisattva, Namo Sahasra Bodhisattva, Namo Ayuta Bodhisattva. I'm doing this on purpose because there's a reason for this. Otherwise, many people won't be able to keep up, Namo Eka Bodhisattva, Namo Dasha Bodhisattva, Namo Shata Bodhisattva, Namo Sahasra Bodhisattva, Namo Ayuta Bodhisattva, Namo 1 million Bodhisattva, 2 million Bodhisattva, 3 million Bodhisattva, all the way to 4 million, 5 million, 6 million, 7 million, 8 million, 9 million, to countless millions of great Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, all the way, just now from 1 Bodhisattva to 9 million, all the way to countless millions of Bodhisattvas. Indeed, there are so many Bodhisattvas in our Sutra. Everyone can recite so many Bodhisattva names. I myself think that indeed our audience here is very fortunate, although in these past couple of days, perhaps many people have gone out to play and don't want to listen to Buddhist teachings. I've seen some Dharma friends, because during the National Day period, everyone has this kind of holiday. We here also had a day or two off. Everyone also went out to play. So I saw that the audience decreased a bit in the past couple of days, but I still feel it's a bit of a pity. If you can obtain the transmission of these Bodhisattva names, it's very good. Going out to play shouldn't affect it. If everyone values it, in any case, this is your personal matter. It's all fine. For me, it doesn't matter. Anyone who forms a connection with the Great Liberation Sutra makes me very happy. So these Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, can eliminate the heavy karmic obscurations of birth and death from countless kalpas. Hearing these Bodhisattva names or reciting these Bodhisattva names, Namo 1 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion, 1,000 billion, 10,000 billion Bodhisattvas, so many. Actually, if it's like this, we here also often recite like this, when we usually recite the names of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, when we often recite innumerable as the sands of the Ganges, Nayutas of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we prostrate to them, take refuge in them, and make offerings to them. Whether we recite for the deceased or when we recite for ourselves, we also do it like this. We ourselves also sometimes can recite like this. If you don't have that much time, you can do it like this. Namo innumerable as the sands of the Ganges, Nayutas of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas. If you recite like this, there's also great merit. Namo innumerable as the sands of the Ganges, Nayutas of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas. Reciting like this also has great merit, because here, if you recite one by one, of course the merit is even greater. But if you really can't, you can recite in a summarized way like this. It's also very meaningful. Namo 10 billion, 100 billion, 1,000 billion, 10,000 billion. I also mentioned the other day that our Tibetan translation is also the same. This YE billion is all translated as 100,000. Namo 10,000 times 10,000 billion. All great bodhisattvas, mahasattvas can eliminate the heavy karmic obscurations of birth and death from countless kalpas. Namo 1 Nayuta, 10 Nayutas, 100 Nayutas, 1,000 Nayutas, 10,000 Nayutas. These Nayutas of Bodhisattvas, we should also prostrate to them. Namo 10,000 times 10,000 Nayutas. All great Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, we should prostrate to them. If it's like this, we can eliminate the heavy karmic obscurations of birth and death from countless kalpas. Namo 1 Ganges sands, Namo 2 Ganges sands, Namo 3 Ganges sands, Namo 4 Ganges sands, Namo 5 Ganges sands, Namo 6 Ganges sands, Namo 7 Ganges sands, Namo 8 Ganges sands, Namo 9 Ganges sands, Namo 10 Ganges sands, Namo 100 Ganges sands, Namo 100 billion countless Ganges sands, all great bodhisattvas, mahasattvas. Using the sands of the Ganges as an analogy like this, here we only have bodhisattvas. What I just taught, when we usually recite Namo 100 billion countless Ganges sands of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas. Reciting like this also has very great merit. Everyone should recite like this with faith. The merit is also especially great, can eliminate the heavy karmic obscurations of birth and death from countless kalpas. If people hear the names of these great beings, these great bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, these great bodhisattvas, mahasattvas names, these people for 40,000 kalpas will not fall into the suffering of hell. These names still have great meaning. Indeed, I told you the other day, when I was young, when I went to that elder in Luo, he often taught about these merits. At that time, I was very, very young, but the impression is still very deep. In the Sutra of Great Liberation, one is Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. If you hear that name, you won't fall into the lower realms. Another is the names of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, whoever hears them. For so many kalpas won't fall into the suffering of hell. This impression is quite deep. So I think our Dharma friends, in the future when propagating the Buddha Dharma to others, you don't necessarily have to offer mandalas or make offerings. You don't need to do that. When we propagate the Buddha Dharma imperceptibly, tell them in various ways, there's a Sutra of Great Liberation. In it are the names of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. When it's convenient, recite it once. This is very important for you. With such simple language, you can accomplish very great deeds. This is very important. In our 15 lessons, on one hand, you've also worked hard. Whether preparing lessons or being here, I've also worked hard. But from our long-term perspective, it's indeed worthwhile for you listening to the class as well. In any case, sitting for an hour or two a day is also possible. If you don't do this, you might be distracted looking at all sorts of random things. And 2 or 3 hours will have passed just like that. So it's also worthwhile for us. And I also feel that whatever effort I put into this matter is especially meaningful. I personally think so. So you see here, hearing these bodhisattvas' names for 40,000 kalpas, they won't fall into the suffering of hell. Moreover, they won't belong to the prison of the 3 realms. They won't belong to the 3 realms. They won't be in this prison of the 3 realms. Or what does not belonging to the 3 realms mean? That prison at the end, they don't belong to the 3 realms. In these 3 realms, they won't fall into the 3 realms. That prison probably doesn't have any other meaning. Then they constantly belong to the King of Liberation. They are always of the lineage that realizes liberation, not born in border regions, not born in evil countries, not receiving evil bodies, not born with wrong views. After hearing this Dharma, there's such great merit. So we're still very worthy. Not born in border regions, not born in evil countries, countries without even a Buddha's name, not receiving evil bodies, incomplete in the 6 sense faculties, or evil, inferior animal beings, not born with wrong views, not born in inferior castes. Xing is the Xing in caste. It means not being reborn in inferior castes, not born in non-Buddhist paths. All sense faculties are complete. The 6 sense faculties are all complete, or all faculties are complete, always hearing the true Dharma, though not observing precepts, constantly obtaining completeness. Although you haven't observed the precepts, you constantly already possess pure precepts. It means you don't observe precepts every day, but actually perhaps through your merit and blessings, the precepts that arise or the precepts you obtain in past lives always remain unbroken. So you haven't personally taken precepts, but actually you constantly As long as you recite the Sutra of Great Liberation, you possess the precepts, Mahayana deportment, and you also possess the dignified and pure deportment of the Mahayana, always seeing Buddha nature. You can also see your own Tathagata Garbha. Therefore now I prostrate to so many bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, abiding in the Buddha Dharma. If it's like this, you can abide in the Buddha Dharma. In the future, in future lives, you'll attain Buddhahood. In the Dashabhumika Vibhasa Shastra, it says, Amitabha and other Buddhas and all great bodhisattvas, calling their names with single-minded recitation, one also attains non-retrogression. There's such merit. Amitabha Buddha and other Buddhas, and Manjushra Bodhisattva and others, these bodhisattvas' names, if we recite even one with single-minded concentration, we can also attain the fruition of non-retrogression. So in our habitual tendencies, I don't know how everyone here is, but some people especially love to cultivate various virtuous practices. In the past, we had a special collection of Buddha and Bodhisattva names. In that collection, at that time, we also propagated it for a while, but I don't know about now. Indeed, the merit is very great. At that time, Khenpo Sodargye also said, "This is very good, can it be translated?" So I translated it. We had many Dharma friends below study it, the collection of Buddha and Bodhisattva names. When we ourselves have time, it's best to recite it ourselves. Some only recite Amitabha Buddha. Only reciting Siddhigarbha Bodhisattva is also not enough, because the merit of these bodhisattvas is truly especially great. In the past, when I was young, or including when I was in school, I often recited Buddha and Bodhisattva names. I had a special little black diary that I copied myself. I recited it every day, but now it seems my practice is getting worse and worse. There are more and more trivial matters, there's no way, but I still recite when I have time. I hope you all also recite Buddha and Bodhisattva names more and meditate more. So at that time, the Buddha taught the names of these great bodhisattvas. 88 billion pure, faithful men and women. It means having pure faith. In Dunhuang, it's also like this. The Jing, pure in the middle, can also be omitted. Pure, faithful men and women realize the fruition of Anagamin. Anagamin is the fruition of non-retrogression, the fruition of Anagamin. 94 billion devas attained the fruition of Sakardagamin. The fruition of Sakardagamin is once returner. 7,008 billion. This 7,000 is a typographical error. 78 billion bhikkhus who had lost their minds regained their original minds. Bhikkhus who lost their minds means that they perhaps had some realization before, but later they already regressed. They lost their faith. Because sometimes when regressing to the ordinary level, their original realization, perhaps even arhats can regress, or some bhikkhus who were very good before, later lost their faith. They already lost this state of recognizing their nature. These bhikkhus later regain the recognition of their nature. They realized the fruition of arhat. There were 78 billion such bhikkhus. 10 billion bodhisattvas attained great dharan. In future lives, they'll attain Buddhahood. This is the great pervasion, extensive square, repentance, eradication of sins, adorned attainment of Buddhahood Sutra, Volume 1, which has been completely concluded. Everyone should dedicate well, dedicate the merit using the King of Aspiration prayers. May the Buddha Dharma flourish and sentient beings obtain peace. May all the great masters who uphold the teachings remain long in the world. May all lands have favorable weather. Eliminate war, famine, disease, and so forth. May sentient beings experience temporary happiness like the celestial realms and ultimately attain the three enlightenments. Good. Let's all dedicate and aspire.
Bandara Padma Sodargye Bandhangara Padma Sodargye Bandhangara Padma Sodargye